I'm Dr. Julia Fallon. I am a board-certified ophthalmologist and vitreoretinal surgeon here in New York City. I take care of the eye, both medically and surgery, and I did some extra training to take care of the couple hundred micron thick tissue that lines the back wall of the eye called the retina that's essential for how we interpret the world around us. When I was younger, I actually wanted to be a Broadway star initially. So I did a lot of musical theater, and I thought that that was going to be my career path, but I loved school. I could not get enough of it. Even from Montessori, I'd be begging my mom to take me in. So I really loved going to class, and I ended up loving science. And my musical theater kind of turned into, hey, maybe I can be a doctor, because I'm really definitely an extrovert. I just thrive off of being with other people, working with other people. So I knew that my career had to involve that. And once it came to my love for science and my love for people, it just seemed like the perfect fit. I think ophthalmology is a great mix of both long-term clinical relationships with patients, but also getting to do real-world, in-time procedures and surgeries. And so that mix of those two things was really kind of what made ophthalmology my calling. And once I started to spend some time in the clinic in the operating room, I knew that it was the right thing for me. I think for anyone really considering medicine, you kind of just have to remind yourself along the way that it's going to be a long journey. But I think every single part of that journey, you meet different people and a different part of you grows. And so, I started on stage. I went out to California for school. I ended up getting involved in doing some research there. And then I came back to New York to go to medical school at NYU. And I think along every step of the way, I met different various people that have shaped who I am today and shaped the doctor that I am today. One of the most challenging things, but also one of the best things, is just the constant adaptation that you make as a doctor, as a scientist, as a lifelong learner. Everything's constantly changing. There's always going to be a new treatment, a new surgical technique. Sometimes you're hearing it for the first time from your patient. And just adapting and being open to change and learning can be really tough when you've gotten so used to doing one thing a certain way, but it's also the beautiful thing about medicine, and it's how we make patients better. The most important thing, and early on in my career, one of my mentors told me this, is I think really grit is essential to being a good surgeon, because you're going to be encountering things that you've never seen before, and you're going to have to see them for the first time. And being able to see them, adapt, process, and move forward when every day in the OR is a little bit different, and every retina you work with and every eye that you work with is a little bit different. I think the strength and kind of just moving forward through that and the toughness that it takes is probably one of the most important things to, I think, being a good surgeon and growing as a surgeon. For everyone, when it comes to just being a surgeon and getting into the operating room, it goes back to what I was saying just about having grit. When it's your first time doing something, when it's your 100th time doing something, something can pop up that you've never seen before. And being able to stop and reflect and have confidence to move forward and say, hey, I have this arsenal of skills, I have this knowledge, this is what happened, let me process, reflect, and move on and do what's best for the patient in this moment. I think being able to do that in the operating room, to kind of dig deep and trust yourself, is probably one of the most important and toughest things that we do as surgeons, and I think it's really essential. The beautiful thing about medicine and ophthalmology specifically is you're really restoring and taking care of such an essential part of how we interpret the world and how we live. I think blindness and loss of vision is a real fear for many people and a real tangible fear. And so we're working with people in their most vulnerable states. You know, it might seem cliche, but it really is true. And I would say it's just the relationship I have with patients, no doubt. I think that there is something so beautiful about the fact that people come to you as a doctor so vulnerable and open to your expertise, your hands, your mind, and just there's such beauty in taking care of a patient, and especially when they come to you in such a vulnerable state and have so much trust for you. I think every day I go home and I just feel so grateful that I've met so many wonderful patients that have entrusted me to take care of them, and I take so much pride and so much honor in that, and it's also, of course, the most rewarding part of it. There is one aspect of retinal surgery when we're doing retinal detachment repair, and retinal detachment is when that couple 100 micron tissue comes off from the back wall, and that's called a retinal detachment, and it's like wallpaper falling off a wall, and it's very important for us to put it back in place. And there's one aspect of the surgery where, using a small handpiece, we start to remove the fluid from underneath the wallpaper and just watch the retina go back into place. And even though I've done it hundreds, if not thousands of times, there is this sweet satisfaction that just comes from watching the retina go back into its anatomical position and being the person that's operating the tools that help to make that happen. I'll sit with colleagues in the operating room, and every time it happens, we'll just be like, it's like the first time. It's really a beautiful thing. And I think that I really hope that when I get to tens of thousands of retinal detachment repairs that I do, that I never lose that. Being in the operating room almost reminds me sometimes of being on stage, in a sense that when I was on stage and I had all my lines memorized, just like when I'm in the operating room and I have all my steps memorized, you almost kind of go into this trance, and you are so engaged in what you're doing that the kind of world around you just falls away. And I think it was the same thing that I felt on stage, and it's the same thing I feel in the OR. Hours could pass and you don't even realize it because you are so consumed by your task at that time. And so I think the OR and the stage are similar in that way. And then the last thing, it's an art. You know, surgery is an art form in itself. The operating room is not just the surgeon. It's the surgeon, it's the anesthesiologist, it's the CRNA, it's the circulator, it's the scrub tech, it's the nursing assistant coming in. It's a whole group, it's a whole team. And so I think you can't just think about yourself, you have to trust each other. And I've been, blessed to be working in the same place for many years now. And so I know most people in the environment that I work with. And I think that there's just a bond that comes from that. And I think ensuring sterility, ensuring a safe environment just comes from each of us trusting each other, knowing that, if by accident your left glove hits something, you're always going to say, hey, stop, I need to change. And I have the utmost faith and trust in my team. Your empathy and care for other people is never going to be a weakness, and to only see it as a strength. Because I think that I've talked to my friends and I've experienced it myself. It's tough. There are going to be really sick patients. There's going to be sad things that happen. And I think sometimes we can get caught up in whether or not we're feeling too much. But I think that the empathy that you have for patients should always be viewed as a strength and never a weakness. I think that's most important. And the second thing I would say is just always take care of yourself, because you really, truly can't take care of patients unless you're operating at top speed. You should do it. It's awesome. It's the best career. Having now started my career and working as an attending and working in a practice with, two other docs who are amazing mentors to me and truly wonderful, I encounter every day so many different people, whether or not it's follow-up visits or new patients. And I think that there's so much beauty in humanity, and there's so many different types of people that you encounter who have different stories and different things to share. And I think that just looking into others and asking questions and just engaging with others, I think you can find a connection with everyone. And I think that that's really one of the most beautiful things and one of the things that inspires me most just about this world and people in general. I think the patients that I've helped along the way, I still reflect on them, every day. And I think the beautiful thing about medicine and ophthalmology specifically is you're really restoring and taking care of such an essential part of how we interpret the world and how we live. I think blindness and loss of vision is a real fear for many people and a real tangible fear. And so we're working with people in their most vulnerable states. And I think that the fact that I can go home and know that I've helped people and I've changed their life for the better is something that I just value and cherish every day. If I had to look back on baby Julia and tell her some things, I think that confidence is a skill that you can practice. And along the way, every step of the way, you're going to encounter different challenges, questioning whether or not that this is something that you're going to be able to do. And everything in life comes with challenges, but nothing's permanent. So it's a bumpy road, but it's an incredible one. Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Julia Fallon, and I just want to thank you guys, Woodside Motion, for having me here. So when I first said that, I actually pictured baby Julia in my headshots for when I was doing musical theater. I had, like when I was 10, I had like a little headshot like this. So I was talking to that baby Julia just then, but that was, it was a personal moment.